Welcome to the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit Thematic Session on Energy. I'm Jiyeon Kim, the reporter and anchor for Arirang TV. I'll be your host for this session themed A Greener Planet with Innovative Energy Solutions. The session is streamed for viewers around the world. Please visit the P4G Seoul Summit website and select the language of your choice, English and Korean. The session venue is taking place here in Korea in adherence to the government's COVID-19 quarantine guidelines. Today's session will begin with welcoming remarks by South Korea's Minister of Trade, Industry, and Energy, Seung-ok Moon, followed by keynote speeches. We'll then dive into the P4G Global Hub session and a panel discussion. Without further delay, let's start the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit Thematic Session on Energy with welcoming remarks by Minister Seung-ok Moon.
안녕하십니까? 대한민국 산업통상자원부 장관 문승욱입니다. 오늘 2021 P4G 서울 정상회의 에너지 세션을 개최하게 되어 매우 뜻깊게 생각합니다. 전 세계에서 온라인을 통해 참석해 주신 산업계, 학계, 연구계, 시민사회계를 비롯한 국제기구 관계자 여러분들 진심으로 환영합니다. 특히 바쁘신 와중에도 기조연설을 수락해 주신 파티 비롤 IEA 사무총장님, 마이클 블룸버그 대표님, 김동관 하나솔루션 대표님, 허버트 아이벤스타이너 웨스트 알핀의 대표님께도 감사드립니다. 그리고 P4G 허브 세션과 패널 토론에 참여해 주신 전 세계 각국의 에너지 전문가 여러분들께도 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 내외 귀빈 여러분, 전 세계가 코로나19로 인해 일상이 송두리째 바뀌고 심각한 경제 위기를 겪었던 지난해에도 기후변화는 멈추지 않았습니다. 세계 기상기구에 따르면 2020년은 기상관측 이래 2016년, 2019년과 더불어 가장 무더웠던 해였다고 합니다. 북극의 빙하는 무너져 내리고 있고 100년 만의 산불, 가뭄, 홍수 등 기후변화는 이제 지구촌 곳곳에서 일상이 되고 있습니다. 이에 따라 전 세계 주요국들은 기후 문제를 인류가 당면한 위기로 인식하고 2050 탄소 중립 선언에 동참하고 있습니다. 한국도 국제사회와 함께 기후변화에 적극 대응하기 위해 작년 10월 2050 탄소 중립 목표를 선언하였습니다. 또한 지난 4월 22일 개최된 기후정상회의에서 미국을 포함한 주요국 정상들은 이전보다 과감한 온실가스 감축 목표를 발표하였습니다. 한국도 온실가스 감축 목표를 상향 조정한 NDC를 금년 내로 발표할 것입니다. 또한 향후 해외 석탄 발전, 공적 금융 지원 중단 등 탄소 중립 실현을 위한 국가적 의지도 표명한 바 있습니다. 전 세계 기업들 또한 탄소 중립 시대에 발맞춰 혁신적인 변화를 준비하고 있습니다. SK, 한화큐셀, LG 에너지 솔루션 등 한국 기업들을 포함 전 세계 약 300여 개 기업들이 아리백 캠페인에 참여하고 있습니다. 석유, 가스, 석탄 등 전통적인 화석에너지 기업들도 재생에너지, 수소 등 저탄소 사업 투자 확대를 통해 새로운 미래를 위한 도전에 과감히 나서고 있습니다. 탄소 중립은 기존 산업이 축소라는 수동적, 부정적 인식으로는 그 목표를 달성하기 어렵습니다. 오히려 새로운 성장 동력과 일자리 창출이 기회라는 긍정적 미래지향적 관점에서 접근해야 합니다. 미국 정부는 기후변화 대응을 위해 올해 3월 대규모 청정에너지 및 인프라 투자를 포함한 일자리 창출 계획을 발표했습니다. EU는 재작년 12월 그린딜 정책을 통해 친환경 정책을 신성장 동력으로 적극 육성해 나가고 있습니다. 한국도 지난해 7월 기존 화석연료 기반의 경제사회 시스템을 저탄소 구조로 전환하기 위하여 2025년까지 총 73.4조 원을 투자하는 그린 뉴딜 계획을 발표한 바 있습니다. 내외 귀빈 여러분, 이번 2021 P4G 서울 정상회의 주제는 포용적인 녹색 회복을 통한 탄소 중립 비전 실현입니다. 코로나19로 인한 경제 위기를 물, 에너지, 식량 농업, 도시, 순환경제 등의 분야에서 국제사회가 함께 극복해 나가고 미래 탄소 중립 목표를 위해 함께 노력해 나가자는 것입니다. 이중 에너지가 전 세계 온실가스 배출의 약 3분의 2 이상을 차지하고 있습니다. 탄소 중립 달성을 위해서는 에너지 분야 시스템 전반에 걸친 혁신이 필요합니다. 우선 현재 화석연료 중심에서 청정에너지로 탈바꿈해야 합니다. 전기화도 급속도로 진행될 것으로 보입니다. 이 과정에서 전력망 인프라의 획기적 확충, 재생에너지 변동성 대응을 위한 스토리지 믹스와 P4G, P2H, V2G와 같은 섹터 커플링의 구현, 탄소 포집 저장 활용 기술 확보, 그린 수소 상용화 투자 확대, 에너지 수요 감축 및 효율 향상 등 에너지 분야의 무수한 난제들을 극복하고 해결해야 합니다. 또한 저탄소 에너지 시스템 구현을 위해 제도와 인프라도 혁신해야 합니다. 기존 화석연료 기반의 에너지 정책과 제도로는 기업들의 비즈니스 전환, 신산업 창출을 감당해내기 어렵습니다. 저탄소 자원이 보다 많이 에너지 시스템에 수용될 수 있도록 규제를 풀고 제도를 혁신해야 합니다. 이와 함께 녹색 분류체계, 뉴딜 펀드, 녹색 금융 등과 같은 녹색 인프라도 지속적으로 보강해야 합니다. 내외 귀빈 여러분, 탄소 중립은 우리가 반드시 가야 할 길이지만 아무도 가보지 않은 길입니다. 개별 기업, 개별 국가의 노력만으로는 절대 찾아갈 수 없습니다. 선진국과 개도국이 함께 탄소 중립으로 나아가기 위한 혁신적이고 창의적인 솔루션을 찾아야 합니다. 국제사회의 연대와 협력도 더욱 견고해져야 합니다. 화석연료 의존도가 높은 개도국의 경우 경제성장과 탄소 중립의 동시 달성은 더욱 어려운 도전이 될 것입니다. 청정에너지 중심의 성장이 될 수 있도록 기술협력, 투자 확대, 금융지원 등 선진국과 국제사회의 보다 적극적인 관심과 지원이 필요합니다. 개도국 지원을 위한 기후 재원을 지속 확대하고 P4G 파트너십 등 개도국 지원의 성공 모델도 공유, 확산해 나가야 할 것입니다. 한국도 책임있는 중견국가로서 선진국과 개도국 간의 브릿지 역할을 충실히 해나가겠습니다. 내외 귀빈 여러분, 지금 전 세계가 코로나19로 힘겨운 싸움을 하고 있습니다. 서로가 쉽게 만날 수 없는 극단적인 상황을 겪고 나서야 비로소 우리는 미래에 대한 준비가 얼마나 소중한지 깨달았습니다. 탄소 중립도 다르지 않습니다. 지금부터 미리 준비하고 대응하지 않으면 더 어려운 싸움이 될 것입니다. 미국의 경영학자 피터 드러커는 미래를 예측하는 가장 좋은 방법은 미래를 창조하는 것이라고 했습니다. 탄소 중립이라는 담대한 도전에 전 세계가 한마음으로 적극 소통하고 협력하여 새로운 미래를 함께 만들어 나갑시다. 오늘 에너지 세션이 탄소 중립 실현과 에너지 혁신의 해법을 모색하는 소중한 기회가 되기를 기대합니다. 그럼 지금부터 2021 P4G 서울 정상회의 에너지 세션을 시작하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much, Minister Moon. Now I'd like to introduce 4 keynote speakers. The first keynote speech is presented by Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol.
Minister Moon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to commend Korea for the leadership it is demonstrating as host of the P4G Seoul Summit. I would like to speak to you today about what it will take for the world to get to net zero emissions by 2050. Clean technologies are becoming the technologies of choice in many areas, in many countries. Solar and wind are setting new records for deployment each year. 90% of the new electricity generation capacity is coming from renewables. Sales of electric cars are heading for new highs again this year. We have also seen over the last year a proliferation of net zero pledges from countries and companies around the world. the level of commitment to fight climate change has never been higher. But take a step back, and the picture becomes much less encouraging. There is still a huge gap between rhetoric and reality. This year, instead of sustainable recovery, we are heading for the second largest increase in global emissions in history, according to our numbers. To get to net zero emissions, we will require nothing short of a total transformation of our energy system. That is why we have just released a new roadmap, the most comprehensive and detailed attempt ever made to spell out what net zero 2050 means in practice. Let's make no mistake. The pathway is narrow but still achievable, and we have no time to spare. We are in a race to net zero, but this is not an ordinary race. Countries are starting in very different places, and some, especially in advanced economies, will need to finish well before the others. This is not a race against each other, this is a race against time. The first priority is to make 2020s a decade of a massive clean energy expansion, focusing on the technologies like solar, wind, electric cars that are ready for the big time, plus a huge improvement in energy efficiency. But we also need to see a huge increase in innovation in order to have clean energy technologies such as advanced battery technologies, electrolyzers, CCS to be part of our energy system. Those technologies which are not mature today but under development. So we have twin challenges: make the most out of the existing technologies, and second, push the button of innovation in order to make them, the advanced technologies, new technologies, part of our global energy system. In our report, we came up with over 400 milestones for governments to take us through the journey to reach net zero by 2050 between now and the next 30 years. We hope that our report provides inspiration, a broad picture for governments around the world, as well as you, distinguished colleagues, a framework for your valuable discussions. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you very much, Executive Director Fatih Valor. We move on to our next speaker, former New York City Mayor and businessman, Michael Bloomberg.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for convening this summit. We're here to talk about an enormous challenge with implications for governments and businesses around the world: climate change. No single business, city, or nation can take on climate change alone. We have to work together to build effective partnerships and raise our ambitions. And while it's critical to set goals for 2030, we also need to make progress now. As UN Special Envoy, I've worked with leaders at every level to do that, particularly on coal-fired power plants. Burning coal remains the largest contributor to climate change, and it's a deadly threat to public health. At Bloomberg Philanthropies, we've worked with partners to retire more than 60% of all U.S. coal plants since 2011, and more than half of European plants since 2016. We've also expanded our work globally, including in South Korea. And I want to thank President Moon Jae-in for his recent pledge to end overseas financing for coal-fired power plants. And I believe that with even more commitments from countries and local partners, we can accelerate the global transition to a greener, healthier future. That includes phasing out coal in high-income nations by 2030 and the rest of the world by 2040. Together, we really can achieve it. Thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, former Mayor Bloomberg. The next speaker is by Chief Executive Officer of Strategy Division, Dong-Kwan Kim of Hanwha Solutions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dong-Kwan Kim, and I'm the CEO of Hanwha Solutions, the total energy solutions division of Hanwha Group, a Fortune Global 500 company. It is an honor to be here today discussing challenges and new opportunities for the future of energy with such distinguished leaders of governments, industries, and civil societies. I can't wait to see how the partnerships forged at this year's summit will place the planet on track to building back better and greener. Hanwha Solutions shares your vision for a greener future and has made it its mission to provide the planet with smart, affordable, and sustainable energy. It is a mission that we take very seriously and one that has driven us to become one of the world's top solar energy companies for 10 years running. We believe that even the smallest advancements can lead to tremendous change. We've created technologies that are making energy production smarter and more sustainable, and we've done so by committing ourselves to making measurable progress against climate change, one innovation at a time. Allow me to give you an example. So much of the climate change discussion circles around what to do with existing energy infrastructure. A shift away from fossil fuels could result in billions of dollars worth of stranded assets. That is, assets and investments that are no longer viable due to changes resulting from climate policy. Coal-fired and other hydrocarbon-based power plants could fall into that category. As governments and energy firms explore ways to transition from coal to renewable alternatives, we're presented with a chance to create measurable progress on reducing humanity's carbon footprint. Pressure to move on from coal has led to increased interest in liquefied natural gas, or LNG-fired power plants. And it's easy to see why. They're viewed as a potential bridge to establishing a low-carbon economy, and they can help ensure stable power supplies by making up for the intermittent nature of renewable energy sources. Yet the problem is, LNG-fired power plants still emit carbon, although far less than the coal-fired facilities. So if our ultimate goal is to reduce emissions, what would be the best way to utilize them? Should they simply serve as a stopgap, or is there a way we could enhance them to open the door for even more measurable emissions progress? If nothing is done, LNG-fired power plants, too, will become stranded assets sooner or later, resulting in financial disaster for investors and creditors. Hydrogen-to-gas turbine technology, or H2GT, offer a potential solution to this problem. Our H2GT technology allows us to retrofit LNG-fired power plants, gas turbines, to run on up to 65% hydrogen fuel. Powering plants in this way would result in more than 30% fewer CO2 emissions and significantly fewer nitrogen oxide emissions. While those figures represent measurable progress in and of themselves, our R&D team is exploring ways to reduce emissions even further by advancing H2GT to reach 100% hydrogen power. Although H2GT represents just one piece of the decarbonization puzzle, its potential to revolutionize power plants exemplifies the type of tremendous change that I mentioned earlier. As we look to build back greener and cleaner, we'll need to prioritize tangible solutions like these to set the stage for more measurable progress down the line. Of course, when I say tangible solutions, I don't just mean hardware. Innovative software has and continues to play an important role in helping our industry tackle a wide range of challenges, especially in the solar sector. Imagine a city with hundreds of thousands of households and businesses, all with varying power consumption patterns that rely on distributed solar energy resources that are susceptible to weather changes and grid conditions. The questions are, how do we balance supply and demand in a reliable and affordable manner? And how do we do so efficiently in line with our goal of reducing carbon emissions? I believe the answers to those questions may lie in big data analysis and artificial intelligence. One of Hanwha Solutions' newest affiliates, energy storage solutions provider Growing Energy Labs Inc., or GELI for short, has developed AI-powered software that could potentially change the energy grid paradigm. GELI solutions are helping us make solar energy more ubiquitous and affordable, and can be used to create virtual power plants by combining the solar modules and energy storage systems of customers in various locations. The solutions optimize price and volume based on the amount of power customers produce and consume, and can alleviate pressure on grids by helping us identify the most efficient supply response to manage fluctuating demand. As time goes by, the solution's efficiency will help us utilize renewable energy more effectively, paving the way for us to make more measurable progress against climate change by reducing carbon emissions even further. At the beginning of my speech, I mentioned Hanwha Solutions' mission to offer the world access to smart, affordable, and sustainable energy. Technologies like H2GT and energy management software are bringing us closer to delivering on our mission, but they don't tell the full story of what that mission means to us. At Hanwha, we believe that tackling climate change is about more than innovations. It is also about making a difference in communities, which is why, as we've enhanced and expanded our green energy solutions, we've also sought out opportunities to use those solutions for the greater good. Each government and international organization in attendance today has the power to improve the lives of a community in need. The interesting thing about working for the greater good, however, is that the greater your numbers, the more good you can achieve. Through cross-sector collaborations, we can combine our capabilities to create lasting change in more communities. Reforestation projects like Hanwha Solar Forest demonstrate the true power of these collaborations. By teaming with social enterprise and with the support of local communities and government agencies, we've successfully planted over 500,000 trees in Korea and abroad, and have been recognized for our efforts by the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Efforts like these would not be possible without cross-sector collaboration, whether it's making sustainable solutions more affordable, drafting green growth policies, or identifying the most urgent environmental matters at regional, national, and global levels. Each of us has a unique role to play, and each is equally important to the success of our collective cause. Climate change is as significant a challenge as humanity has ever faced, and rising to that challenge will require the combined efforts of all of us. Only by working together will we finally turn the measurable progress we've been making into transformative change. Thank you.
Now for our final keynote speaker, I invite Herbert Ivensteiner, the CEO of Vulsafine.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to take part in the 2021 P4G Seoul Summit. We at voestalpine take climate protection very seriously and have a clear plan of how to achieve carbon neutrality as a company. voestalpine is an international steel and technology group employing around 50,000 people at 500 sites worldwide. We are specialized in high-quality steel products for the most demanding industries. Our own steel production in Austria accounts for around 1/3 of our total revenue. The other 2/3 are derived from processing steel into highly sophisticated end products. These include lightweight components for cars, highly resistant airplane parts, complete railway infrastructure systems, and high bay warehouses, to name a few. We at voestalpine are clearly committed to global climate goals and strive to be part of the solution. In fact, we have been an environmental pioneer in the steel industry for many years. Over the past decades, we have reduced air emissions and energy consumption to the possible minimum. But steel production at the current state of technology is still generating CO2. Only a radical technological transformation will allow us to significantly reduce our CO2 emissions further. Therefore, voestalpine has developed a step-by-step plan to decarbonize steel production over the coming years. With our project GreenTech Steel, we aim at gradually shifting from the coal-based blast furnace route to electricity-based production technology. This could reduce CO2 emissions by around a third by 2030. In absolute numbers, this will save 3 to 4 million tons of CO2 per year. Over the long term, we plan to increase the use of green electricity and green hydrogen. Our ultimate goal is to produce carbon neutral steel by 2050. With this goal in mind, we are intensively researching into so-called breakthrough technologies for steel production based on green hydrogen. To give you just two examples, at our headquarters in Austria, we are currently running the world's largest pilot plant for the production of green hydrogen in the steel industry. In another facility, we are testing the production of crude steel in a single process step using hydrogen plasma. However, this transformation scenario greatly depends on its economic feasibility. What we need in order to succeed is a policy framework that unites climate, energy, and economic concerns. Another important requirement is the availability of sufficient renewable energy at affordable prices. This is the only way we can apply tomorrow's technologies in a truly competitive manner. One thing is for sure, no matter how we produce steel in the future, it will be needed more than ever to realize a green future. There would be no wind turbine, no hydropower, no electric car, and no public transport without steel. It is one of the most commonly used materials worldwide and is indispensable in a sustainable society. Steel is much more durable than other materials and can be recycled with no loss of quality. Last but not least, I'm convinced that it will take a global effort to change our climate for the better and preserve a livable world for future generations. Every one of us is asked to make a contribution. We at voestalpine are prepared to do so. Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much for attending today's session. This is Hijib Kim. I'm the moderator of today's panel discussion. It's an honor to host this panel discussion with highly respectable global leaders. Let me briefly introduce myself. I used to work for Accenture for 26 years and leading energy industry sector for Asia. And now I'm teaching energy transformation, the lovely subject at Seoul National University. It's an honor for me to have this panel, and I believe this is a very important topic, as you all agree. As the minister says before, energy industry is generating about 2/3 of greenhouse gas in the world. So it is very important for us to find out the solutions in the energy sector in this topic. Today's objective is to brainstorm on our strategy to achieve global carbon neutrality. And we have highly respectable 7 speakers, and I'll introduce each speaker, and I'll ask each speaker to introduce themselves shortly. First, Stefan Michel, would you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stéphane Michel. I'm heading the gas, renewable and power business line of Total, the oil and gas energy company, which is becoming a broad energy company, as I will explain.
Thank you. And Mr. Andrew Marsh?
I'm Andy Morris. I'm the CEO of Plug Power. Plug Power is located in upstate New York, and it's a pleasure to be here in Korea today.
Nice to meet you. Mr. Sam Kimmins?
Hi, my name's Sam Kimmins. I'm the head of RE100 with the Climate Group. RE100 brings together 311 of the world's largest corporates, all committed to using 100% renewable electricity. And I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Yosuke Kiminami-san?
Hi, 안녕하세요. Thank you, Mr. Kim. This is Yosuke Kiminami, founding CEO of Renova, a renewable energy IPP company active in Asia. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. And Thomas Anker Christensen?
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Copenhagen. I'm the climate ambassador of Denmark. My role is to take the Danish 70% reduction target for 2030 and translate that into global action.
Thank you. And Hong Patterson?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Hong Patterson. I'm the CFO and the Director for Support Services for the Green Climate Fund. Founded and established under the UNFCCC, the Green Climate Fund is the world's largest climate-focused fund, helping developing countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and enhance their ability to respond to climate change in line with the Paris Agreement.
Thank you. And Sung Eun-jang?
Hello, everyone. This is Chang Sung-eun, the founder of AYOK. We are providing education opportunities to children in Africa by distributing energy in rural area. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Our panel discussion will be composed of 3 themes. First, we'll talk about innovation and strategies of energy companies, the traditional ones, and also new energy companies first. And then we'll talk about the policy, government policy on global carbon neutrality. And after that, we'll talk about partnership, collaboration, cooperation, global cooperation, and also inclusive green growth together. So those are 3 themes. Let's begin our panel discussions. Let's hear from our speakers. Stefan Michel, would you please start?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for the invitation and choosing the term survival and innovation strategy for traditional energy company. I guess I'm the representative in this panel of what is behind me and the way you see me, a dinosaur. A dinosaur whose only future is to disappear because they are not relevant because of the climate change challenge. And I just hope that in 5 minutes I will be able to convince you that you are wrong, and that actually what I am is what is behind me, something broad and diverse. Why are we legitimate? Our role is not to sell oil and gas. It has never been to sell oil and gas. Our role is to sell energy to the planet and provide something that is key for life. The challenge we all have is to be able to do that while at the same time we take care of the climate change and we are able to reconcile the need for energy and respecting sustainable development of the planet. And that's why Total has decided to transform itself and to turn into a broad energy company and even to change its name from Total to Total Energies, with a clear commitment with society to achieve carbon neutrality in 2050, but more importantly, to take some concrete steps to decrease our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission clearly as of 25 and 2030, with a 40% decrease of our emission versus 2015. And then on Scope 3, again, with society, because we are not alone to change things, to try to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. How are we going to do that? There are 4 key pillars for us. The first one is clearly to build an electric arm to our company, both on renewable aspect, and we have embarked in a journey in the last 5 years where we are building solar and wind energy, reaching 7 gigawatt as I speak, with a pipe to reach 25 gigawatt by 2025 in Europe, in the US, in India, in Asia, and trying to reach 100 gigawatt by 2030. And we are well on stream to do that, investing more than 2 billion per year in that sector, and confident we will deliver that. And we believe that the global reach and our ability to manage big projects that we have developed in the oil and gas will help us to achieve that and to become one of the top 5 renewable company in the world. So that's one. Second, developing as well our presence in the electricity market down to the customer. And we are honored to be serving today more than 7 million customers in Europe and going to 13 million direct customers in gas and electricity by 2030. So renewable distribution of electricity and gas. Third axis is promoting LNG. We are convinced that in the coming 20 years, gas will be key for many countries to ensure a transition in the way they produce power, and that gas should, as much as possible, replace coal as a way to produce power. At the same time, we are developing renewable energy, but you have to take care of the intermittence of what can be produced, and we still believe that gas should be part of the solution. With that, that means that our mix of energy is going to evolve, where it's roughly it's around 50% today of oil and 50% of gas, and it should be with time 30% with oil, 5% with biofuel, 50% with gas, and at least 50% of green electricity. Obviously, the last part of that to reach carbon neutrality will be our ability to offset carbon emission, Scope 1 and 2. And to do that, we have started as well to develop a business of CCUS, so carbon capture and storage. That's one aspect, with several projects in Europe, Norway, Holland. That's one. And second, to develop as well what we call natural-based solution, being now a 100 million per year investor on forest, either to make new plantation or to maintain existing one. And with all that, we have a global strategy that is coherent, that allows us, that put us on track to deliver our commitment to the neutral carbon objective, but at the same time to be able to provide the energy that the world is needed. And if I talk in all terms of dinosaur terms, that would represent going from 3 million barrels to 3.5 million barrels. But I guess we will have to change and talk in petajoule tomorrow or gigawatt. All that is possible, and at the same time, we are still going to produce and sell a bit of oil by 2050, because it will be required by part of the planet that will be come a bit later on their transition. And to do that, you have to focus your whole portfolio as well on the oil that is cheap to produce. And that's why we have completely rebalanced our portfolio in the last year, in the last 10 years, focusing on the places where it's cheap to produce, and as well, it necessitates less CO2, which means basically exiting Canada, for example, and the shale in Canada, and focusing on cheap oil in Middle East. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing wonderful views you have on your company, Total. Very interesting. Let me ask some questions here. First, what is the role of innovation in terms of energy transformation for your company? How important the innovation is? Would you please explain to us?
Yeah, innovation is key. It's key because it's innovation which has allowed to lower cost on renewable energy. And if we are not cut costs by 10 on solar, we wouldn't be talking of what we are talking today. That's one. Innovation will be key for hydrogen and to make hydrogen a reality tomorrow. It's going to continue to be key to optimize all the power system and to be able to take into account how to manage the intermittency of renewable energy. We are investing 1 billion on the battery for electric vehicle, as we are as well shareholder of Saft. And innovation here is absolutely key to make that transition. So it's absolutely exciting because I believe that has been not been for a while a period of history where the transformation is so huge and innovation is so key in what's going to happen in the energy sector. But we should not forget that it's R&D with what we call low TRL, but one of the challenge as well is to industrialize all that and put it at scale. And that's where I think we need to manage a global ecosystem with startups, with smaller company, perhaps more agile than we could be, but as well big player that can make a difference because you need size and scale. And the big question for us is as well to be able to entertain that ecosystem and partnership with people with great ideas and more agile that we could be, but unfortunately with less financial means. And it's by the cooperation that we will make it happen.
Thank you. I think if I heard right, I think you mentioned about carbon sinks. Can you provide some examples on carbon sinks?
Yeah, on carbon sinks, you have two types. You have on one side using depleted gas field, for example, in the North Sea or existing aquifer where you can store carbon. And I would say it's clearly the type of business we are used to because it's instead of taking the gas outside of the reservoir, you have to put it back. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's pipe, compression, transport. So we know how to do that. And as I say, we have the first big project in Europe, in Norway, called Northern Light, to prove that it can work at scale and on a commercial basis. So that's one part. And the second part is what you see on the screen on my right, which is forest. and investing clearly in preserving forest or in planting new trees. And we are currently investing 100 million per year. We just closed several deals in Gabon, in Congo, in Peru. What is important is to do it in collaboration with a local stakeholder. Because if you don't ensure that they make a living for what you are doing, it's not sustainable. So you need to check the best standard when you are doing that. But we are sure that it will allow us to get carbon ton at let's say $10 per barrel, $10 per ton, which is our objective.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It must be a great challenge for traditional oil and gas company to make the energy transformation. Thank you.
Yes,
Let's move
but
on.
it's very exciting as well, and we are sure that we won't end up like Kodak, for example, being judged irrelevant to the energy market. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the second speaker. Mr. Andrew Marsh, would you please?
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. As I mentioned, I'm the CEO of Plug Power, and Plug Power created the first commercial market for fuel cells. And not the sexiest market in the world. We put fuel cells in the forklift trucks, but we've actually deployed over 40,000 units to date with people like Amazon and Walmart. And during the COVID crisis, fuel cell powered forklift trucks actually delivered more than 25% of the food that went on folks' table. But to do this, we needed to develop a turnkey solution. We've actually built over 120 hydrogen stations, which will reach 175 by the end of this year. We also are the largest user of liquid hydrogen in the world, using over 40 tons a day. That's equivalent to 80,000 gallons of gasoline. Company also, when you look at it, has developed some unique technologies. We are, in the United States, the largest manufacturer of MEAs. And recently, over the past year, we bought the first private company that ever built a liquid hydrogen plant of scale, United Hydrogen, and coupled that with another purchase by an electrolyzer company called Giner EOX, which is known to have the leading PEM stack technology in the world. So Plug, just to give you a feel, did in the fuel cell and hydrogen space over $240 million last year. And in this coming year, we're going to do $475 million in revenue. We are, without question, the innovators in this space. And this capability has allowed us to move into other areas, on-road vehicles, as well as large-scale stationary products. I think the thing that excites me the most is Plug is building the first green hydrogen network across the United States, using the capabilities we have in electrolyzers, as well as building liquid hydrogen plants. We've set out a goal that we'll generate over 500 tons per day of liquid hydrogen by 2025. And globally, and this is all going to be green, we've made a commitment that the future is green, not because of us, because we talk to people like Amazon, Walmart, Home Depot, who tell us that to meet their net zero goals, they need green hydrogen. We'll be doing over 1,000 tons by 2028. For example, we have a partnership in Spain with Acciona. I just wanted to let you know that hydrogen, and I think many folks know, can help reduce the carbon footprint by 6 gigatons by 2050. It's not just all in transportation. You can see transportation is only half the issue. Lots of opportunities in industrial energy, such as steel manufacturing, building heating. We're working with many companies with putting hydrogen into their natural gas pipeline. I did want to just stop and talk about plug-ins, and I think it started out by talking about the world is how you build partnerships. By the end of the second quarter, we'll announce a JV with Renault, where Plug Power and Renault will be putting fuel cell light commercial vehicles on the road in the coming year. Actually, we're looking to do 10 pilot sites in 2022. Now, this joint venture will be based in France. It has a goal that by 2030, we'll have over 30% of the fuel cell electric vehicle market in Europe. Now, and this, like our business and material handling, we not only will be selling vehicles, we'll be selling the hydrogen infrastructure, as well as the ability to generate green hydrogen. And we haven't forgotten Korea. I think many folks in this seminar know that Korea has ambitious targets by 2040. SK, the second largest conglomerate in Korea, invested $1.6 billion in the Plug Power in February. And we're looking to not only do fuel cell systems, but fueling infrastructure, our electrolyzers, and our large-scale stationary products. We're looking to deploy in Korea by 2025 with SK over 400 megawatts of stationary products. You know, you got to have a place to build it. And we're building a gigafactory located in Rochester, New York, actually where Kodak is. And a lot of the technology, interesting enough, to make MEAs is very similar to the capability that existed at Kodak years ago. We'll be putting out over 1.5 gigawatts of output next year out of this facility, making 7 million MEAs, stamping our own plates, building electrolyzer products. So as you can see, this gigafactory actually has 256 pieces of unique equipment, which we're planning to duplicate with SK in South Korea. So the Plug story, this is the company that established the first market in the hydrogen industry. We're going to be a major player. We've been driving the green hydrogen economy. As you heard, we're deeply involved in on-road vehicles and large-scale stationary. We're expanding our geographical footprint with partners like SK and Renault. And look, we have over $5 billion on our balance sheet at the end of the first quarter. So we're well positioned to meet our ambitions. So that's the Plug story.
Thank you very much. Very aggressive and impressive. Your company is already famous here in Korea. Yes, that is correct. I'd like to ask one question. It's an obvious question, but can you explain to us how hydrogen will contribute to the global carbon neutrality?
So when you look at, with folks like Total, Plug Power's members of the Hydrogen Council, which is a global organization of over 80 countries. The council and company believe 18% of world's energy will come from hydrogen by 2050. There's many applications where batteries aren't the solution, where solar is not the solution, but there's many applications where they are. So if you think, for example, let me point out a couple, large heavy-duty vehicles, where because of the energy density advantage of fuel cells, as well as the lighter weight, fuel cells have unique advantages. I think when you also look at opportunities such as industrial heating and steel manufacturing, batteries and electricity don't have the heat content required for those processes. And that's why we believe that by 2050, 6 gigatons of CO2 will be removed by moving to hydrogen in the future.
Thank you very much. Because of a time constraint, we'll move on. Let's go to Mr. Sam Kimmins. Would you make your speech for us?
My name's Sam Cummins. I'm the head of RE100 with the Climate Group. RE100 brings together currently 311 of the world's largest companies committed to 100% renewable electricity for their global operations. This is the latest side of our membership. We're going to need a new way of showing this shortly because we're running out of space on the slide and we can't get the logos any smaller. But to give an idea of the scale of RE100, together our members' electricity demand exceeds that of Italy. So over 300 terawatt hours per year, that's around 2/3 the annual energy demand, electricity demand of South Korea. So, and these companies are putting their money where their mouths are. IKEA, I found a member, famously owns more wind turbines than they do stores. And in fact, 10% of new renewable additions last year were through corporate power purchase agreements. So this is having a real tangible impact on markets. So why are companies doing this? Well, they're stepping up to RE100 because they know that their future competitiveness is dependent on being able to use cheap, clean power. And this is a really positive message for supply companies who are either shifting to or are based on producing electricity using renewables. It's obviously a less positive message for energy suppliers based on coal and gas. These companies, these huge customers are saying, we don't want your product. So RE100 is growing by around 70 companies a year, and that growth is accelerating. And those companies are making active decisions about where they invest, where they actually source in their supply chains, based on whether they're able to use renewables in those geographies. If it's not possible to buy renewables in a country, they are actually making active choices about their location. A number of our companies, including Apple, Google, and Microsoft and others, are also making active choices in their supply chains. 100 Apple suppliers have now committed to using 100% renewables for Apple products. We're seeing similar trends amongst many of our members. And this is having potentially huge implications for Asia Pacific economies, which are largely based on supply to the rest of the world. And the president of the Taiwanese authorities, President Tsai Ing-wen, in her 2019 keynote policy address, stated that the ability for companies to achieve RE100 is critical to Taiwan's industrial policy. This trend is also being noted in Taiwan, and we're delighted that a number of companies, including several members of the SK Group, plus K-Water, LG Energy Solution, and more, have joined us in RE100, despite it being almost impossible to buy renewable electricity at scale in Korea. Indeed, these companies are joining us because it is almost impossible to buy renewable electricity in Korea. Similarly, 54 Japanese companies have joined RE100. These companies are sending a very strong signal to the market that they need things to change. They need the policies put in place that will enable them to buy renewable electricity in order that they can compete, not only securing cheap, clean, renewable electricity, but also competing in the marketplace for custom from these large buyers like Apple, Google, BT, etc., etc. I'm delighted to say that the Korean government is responding, the Japanese government also, and the Taiwanese government are responding with policies that are opening up for competition in the marketplace to now allow renewables to compete on a level playing field with fossil fuels. There's not enough time in this presentation to go into the details of those measures, but I'd be happy to answer any questions on the progress that's being made. So I shall leave you with Alok Sharma's call to action for COP for more companies to join RE100 and send this strong market signal. Thank you very much.
We'll move on to the next speaker. And Kiminami-san, would you please make your speech for us?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Yeah. This is Yosuke Kiminami of Renova, a renewable energy IPP company. Yes, next page. Let me introduce the activity of Renova. Renova is a research company specialized in development and operation of renewable energies, such as solar, wind, biomass, geothermal, and small hydro. Renova was founded in Tokyo in 2000 and has made continuous growth. Now we have more than 200 colleagues working together for the benefit of Earth and the community. And here is our mission, to create green and sustainable energy systems for a better world, with a vision to become Asia's renewable energy leader. We are actively developing and operating 26 projects around Asia and Japan. And we have made active investments in renewables projects, which accumulates $4 billion to date. Total capacity of the projects already announced are 1.8 gigawatts, including operating, construction, and development projects. We are aiming for the growth by actively developing projects in growing sectors, such as offshore wind in Japan and other Asian markets. Our target is to have 3 gigawatts total capacity in mid-term and even larger for the long term. And there are a lot of renewable measures coming out of Europe. I believe that there should be new renewable measures from Asia, and Renova is aiming to become one. Renewable energy project is dependent on natural resources in each area, so we believe mutual success with the local community is a key for success and our raison d'etre. We always to understand the local community deeply and bring additional values on top of renewable energy. From our experience, local community is not only looking for green energy. There are a variety of needs, such as promotion of fishery and forestry, increasing local employment of tourists, involvement in maintenance works, etc. A renewable project is often just a trigger to enrich the region. Important thing is to commit to local community for long term through establishing mechanisms to create new industries and social communication. And now we are expanding our business in Asia with the same philosophy. Now, we have 3 subsidiaries in Singapore, Korea, and Vietnam. We are developing projects in collaboration of local members who knows the market deeply, local partners who shares our philosophy and goal, and professional teams from the head office. Let me introduce our project in Vietnam as one example of our activity in Asia. We participated in one of the largest onshore wind projects with a local capacity, with a total capacity of 144 megawatts in May 2020. This project is led by PCC1, our partner, and we are contributing our engineering and financing capabilities. Project construction is going well, targeting completion with this October. And here, I will talk about Yuri Honjo offshore wind project in Akita, Japan. This is one of the largest offshore wind projects in Japan. Total capacity of 700 megawatts and the bidding process. We are fully supported by fishery associations and the local authorities as a result of our effort to reach mutual success and creating additional value, as discussed earlier. This is a picture of a calligraphy work done by one of the local fishermen in Yuri Honjo, showing our mutual success philosophy. This is our treasure, and we displayed it in our office. Offshore wind project is very complicated and large, involve a lot of technical considerations. Renova is building up a full-fledged engineering team capable to lead and manage the major technical issues in-house. The last topic of my presentation, I would like to talk about Chodo offshore wind project in Korea. This is the first time to talk about this project in public. Together with our partner from Korea, our Korean office members has been playing key role developing this project. We value a long-term partnership with the local stakeholders. We got consent from local community from the project. We got 1 year wind data and have submitted application for energy business license this January. We have plans to expand the project to up to 1 gigawatt. We'd like to further contribute to a greener planet and the local community. I'm looking forward to the exciting discussion with you today. Thank you very much.
Now let's move on to policy, the government sector. Mr. Thomas Anker Christensen, would you please make your speech for us?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kim, and hello to everyone. It's been very interesting to listen to the interventions from industry, and in a way, I would say that Denmark, in many ways, tries to be that most ambitious and most aggressive renewable energy country that can provide those frameworks and those the market that you all have been talking about. We have, during the lockdown, set ourselves the target of an emission reduction of 70% in 2030, with, of course, a view to climate neutrality in 2050. And we are working very hard on the 70% target. Just today in Parliament, they're negotiating on setting a 50% reduction target for 2025, that is in 3.5 years. And in the political negotiation and the policy framework of Denmark, that is being done by targeted negotiations track by track. So we have an energy track, industry, transport, circular economy and waste, agriculture, of course, and even taxation. And in each of these tracks, they're trying to make the policy changes, the regulatory changes that not only make it possible to achieve the target, but also make it good business to do so. And this is being done in close collaboration between the public and private sector. There are 13 public-private partnerships for each of the major strands of private sector, where the main players in each sector come together, whether it's energy or it's cement or it's shipping, and in a way also trying to make sure that we get the integration of the green energy generation, the transformation into hydrogen, and the uptake into the hard-to-abate sectors on the industry side, whether it's cement or shipping or trucking or aviation, that we get that value chain integrated in our planning. As part of the government decision is the very ambitious push for new construction of offshore wind with 10 gigawatt. Now, compared to the Japanese target of 45 gigawatt, that maybe not sound as much, but we're a small country with 6 million inhabitants. So 10 giga, that's for 10 million households. And that means we will have energy enough to export to our neighbors, but also when we are at peak capacity, we will have during the rest of the day excess energy to produce green hydrogen. And in a way, I think that's one of the outstanding questions in the hydrogen equation. It's the cost of the energy that goes into the production, but we're trying to solve that by having above peak capacity on green energy. So we are trying to think through the whole value chain domestically, but then also to create a good platform for Danish companies to be working with you in Korea, with Japan, in the US, on rolling out these technologies at scale. So we're trying to think it through both domestically and globally, of course, being a small country, but one that's moving very aggressively in this space.
Thank you. Your country has been a role model in terms of energy transformation for many countries here. I have one question. You mentioned about private-public sector partnership. What did you do in terms of promoting private-public partnership better? Would you elaborate that aspect to us?
Sure. I mean, the government basically invited the main federations of Danish industry, Danish energy, food and land use, into identifying what would be the best work streams for bringing in the private sector. And then they identified these 13 main sectors, and then they asked the industry itself to organize in those, working with their main associations and also with experts in how you could drive the 70% reduction target through each sector. And they each came up with a roadmap and in a way offered what they could do under existing regulatory conditions, with improved regulatory conditions, with existing financing, with public financing, and with private financing, and in a way showing the different options and opportunities. In that overall framing, they also took into account the transition of workers, the job creation dimension. Just to give you one figure, for every gigawatt of offshore wind we count that it creates about 14,000 to 15,000 jobs. So there's a net job increase by actually moving into offshore wind. And of course also the health dimension for public health and public safety. There's also a dimension there. So overall, we try to take a very much whole of government, whole of industry approach to the way we go about it.
Let's move on to another very important subject of today, the global cooperation and also inclusive green growth. I'd like to ask Ms. Hong Patterson to make a speech for us.
Thank you, and I'd like to echo some of the comments before. Thank you for inviting us to join such an important topic, and it's so encouraging to hear the other interventions. The energy sector is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions given the world's reliance on fossil fuels. At the same time, over 500 million people still lack access to electricity, and 1/3 of the world's population lacks access to clean energy sources for cooking. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, renewable energy must supply about 70 to 85% of all electricity by 2050 for the world to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement and limit warming well below the 2 degrees. Investments in renewable energy must also increase energy access to underserved people, creates jobs, and bolsters economic growth. Developing countries have a unique opportunity to leapfrog from traditional fossil fuel sources straight to low-emission energy generation from renewable sources, which are now cheaper than new fossil fuel power in many parts of the world. However, despite increasingly competitive costs for renewable energy technologies, policy, regulatory, and institutional barriers coupled with a lack of depth in local capital markets in developing countries prevent the mobilization of investments at scale and at competitive rates. The World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report in 2021 assessed the top global risks by likelihood. It highlighted 4 environmental factors: Listed second after extreme weather events is the failure of governments and businesses to enforce, enact, or invest in effective climate change adaptation and mitigation measures, preserve ecosystems, protect populations, and transition to a carbon neutral economy. Climate change is running much faster than we are. We need to be much more ambitious and with urgency. Leaders today looking to revive economies are faced with decisions that either entrench our dependency on fossil fuels or put us on a path to achieve the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. Action is needed to address these barriers in order to attract global financial flows and crowd in private investments to shift to renewable energy-based power systems and meet national climate, economic, and social goals. The Green Climate Fund, as I had mentioned earlier, is the world's largest climate-focused fund, helping developing countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and enhance their ability to respond to climate change in line with the Paris Agreement. We do this across 4 transition areas: the built environment, human security, livelihoods, and well-being, land use, forest and ecosystems, and the topic at hand, which is energy and industry. GCF is in a unique position whereby we're able to participate across the value chain. So in the front end and anchored in our core principle of country ownership, GCF supports countries through its readiness programs by providing grants to help countries develop bankable investment plans based on their NDCs, and includes the development of long-term clean energy planning and budgeting that integrates climate externalities and socioeconomic co-benefits, and catalyzing climate innovation through innovative business models and employing high-impact innovative technologies. Subsequently, at the programming stage, GCF can mobilize funds at scale through de-risking investments and thereby unlocking local capital. Unlike most institutions, we are able to deploy a full range of financing instruments, which includes grants, loans, guarantees, and equity investments to help meet country-specific needs and reduce risks for investors. By using these instruments and through risk sequencing, GCF is able to mobilize capital at scale for investments where risk may otherwise be considered too high. And I think we heard this in some of the other interventions previously. This accelerates the transition to renewable energy, as well as providing energy access and affordability for millions of people, including marginalized groups. And then finally, at the tail end of the value chain, lessons learned from our portfolio allows us to share knowledge of successful innovations, scalable mobilization efforts, and developing climate expertise of financial institutions to replicate them. And this can include enabling the adoption of best practices in grid capacity, storage, and flexibility for higher penetration renewable energy, increasing the national and subnational energy service buyers' green procurement capacity, and strengthening the scientific verification of causality between access to electricity and the increased climate resilience. Partnerships have formed the basis of GCF's business model, so it's really encouraging to hear some of this echoed in the other interventions as well. But it's been the basis of GCF's business model since it was established. Leveraging existing sectoral initiatives, coalitions, and platforms when planning interventions are critical to creating multiplier effects and promoting joint learning and knowledge transfer in the renewable energy sector. So it's with these partnerships that we will have a chance of achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw that you are very good at the numbers. And you are the CFO of GCF. Very good. I have a question for you. You mentioned about partnerships and alliances. It is very important in achieving climate neutrality. And would you explain to us how GCF is supporting those partnerships and alliances?
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned before, energy sector decarbonization holds the key for meeting the goals of maintaining climate change to below the 2 degrees. And financing needs for this are beyond any one single firm or public body alone. There's still a significant number of people who are still without basic energy services. So it's about 650 million who don't have access to electricity, about 2.3 billion people without access to clean and modern cooking fuel. Significant financing is needed for transitioning out of existing centralized and fossil fuel-based energy systems while scaling up on low emissions, climate resilient energy systems. But at the same time, there's also significant financing needs for new grid infrastructure and new rules of power and energy markets. So partnerships and alliances are therefore critical for efficiency and effectiveness of capital investments and to shape the new market rules as governance of international financial systems that can integrate climate needs. And they're also, as I mentioned earlier, central to GCF's business model. We work with over 200 national and international partners to enable and foster alliances and business models that can help scale climate finance for energy transition. I think I wanted to share maybe one example of a line of credit that we provided for solar rooftop segment in the commercial, industrial, and residential housing sectors. The goal of the program was to enable access to long-term affordable finance for solar rooftop installation projects in India, including vulnerable communities. The program provides access to long-term and affordable financing for the construction of 250 megawatts of rooftop solar capacity in India, and thereby reducing emissions by about 5.2 million tons of CO2 equivalent over 20 years or so. This pioneering private sector-driven initiative unlocks private sector investments in the rooftop solar market and also paves the way to a sustainable bankable model in India. And we feel it could be used as a template for programs in other countries. But going back to your original question, how did we do this? This program was developed with the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development as the accredited entity. Tata Cleantech Capital, the Indian private sector, alongside IFC Investment, which is the private sector of the World Bank, and then providing lending to local SMEs. And we had strong engagement with CSOs and with the local communities.
Let's move on to next speaker, Ms. Seung-eun Jang, and we'll hear about inclusive green growth from her. Ms. Jang, would you please?
Hello, everyone. This is Jang Seung-eun, the founder of YOOK. It's my pleasure to be part of this P4G summit here today. President Moon Jae-in's remark about the need for every nation to come together to address poverty and inequality in developing countries, as well as the possibility of combating global climate change through these efforts, demonstrates that environmental issues are a global problem that transcend the national borders. One such example is the use of kerosene. 1.3 billion people use kerosene due to the lack of electrification. Even though majority of them are living in sub-Saharan Africa, this is a problem that affects to everyone since it causes severe carbon emissions and air pollution. So to address this issue, you come up with a solution called Solar Cow. Let's take a look.
Batteries, my friends go to school where the solar cow waits for them. They plug their batteries into the solar cow. While they wait for the solar cow to charge the batteries, they can take classes and also have fun with their friends. After school, they can go home with fully charged batteries to power lights and cell phones. Thanks to Solar Cow, the house is now bright at night. Also, they no longer need to go to charging shops far from home. The solar milk batteries provide incentive for parents to send their kids to school. So my friends and their parents can all be happy.
It's an innovative approach that tackles the two problems at the same time. The child labor and energy distribution has been recognized in several international platforms. Through the P4G project, we work in Kenya with the Energy for Impact, an NGO that specialized in energy. We wanted to test the business model by collecting the user fees. So we implement the two solar cows in Umchinjirini and Umtimboani. So these two schools were very different, has a very different criteria. But unfortunately, not long after starting the project, the COVID-19 occurred and posing us a substantial challenge for the project operation. But through this experience, we found out there's some possibility that we can operate this program commercially. And a new opportunity arose when we learned that insufficient electrification was an obstacle for international organizations in remote learning through the radios during the COVID-19. So Yoke immediately developed a new solution, new solar cow with the radio features, and provide the means to encourage remote learning as well as distribute the energy. We work with the KOICA for this site, Zanzibar. And furthermore, in the case of limited mobility, we plan to ensure that families can still be supplied with energy through the individual solar panels without sending their kids to school, as long as they allow and encourage their children to listen to the educational contents through this solar milk, the radio. So it can, become very important devices that can sustain the education, even in, a prolonged pandemic. And we also, with the citizens, we run a crowdfunding campaign in United States. And you can see that we have a very successful campaign, and it shows the participation of the citizens can be very powerful. And I'm glad to share news that we just launched a crowdfunding in Korea, and we are eager to meet Korean backers. One innovative solution might not be able to change the whole world, but when we all realize that this global issue is our own problem and act together, I believe that we can make a change. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It is actually very brave effort that you're making here. Question I have for you is, in promoting your business in developing countries, what are the difficulties that you are facing, and what kind of assistance that you like to have in the future?
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time and effort for receiving the permission from the Ministry of Education in Kenya and Tanzania. So that I think if we can, get the government level of the cooperation, then it will be, tremendous help, especially when you scale up the project and implemented hundreds and thousands of the solar cow. And yeah, I think that'll be really helpful.
I think we heard from all 7 highly respectable global leaders how we can work together to achieve global carbon neutrality better. I sincerely hope that you learned a lot today. Personally, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of lessons. I think I got a lot of advices. And I think I saw some hope here. And as you know, to achieve global carbon neutrality will be a very difficult journey for all of us. We will have a lot of issues to resolve. But I see that we can get together, we can brainstorm together, and we can figure out and we can help each other how we can make the progress together. I think we have a great future and hope here. I hope that we can continue to brainstorm on this. This is the first step. But I hope that we can continue those efforts together. So let's work together to achieve the global carbon neutrality together. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.